and I'm still happy with how it runs. So that's my side deck. For the most part, my matches were. Let me get my book here. Okay. Round 1, I faced against TG and Flamevel, and I lost. We went 1-2 for me, so I lost. Game 1, I managed to go X, Yagen, W into a very easy win, and he doesn't draw any traps, so I don't have to deal with that. And games 2 and 3, he goes heavy back row me. He heavy back rows me with things like Skill Drain and Horn, and I can't deal with it. Like game 3, I made a mistake he summoned a Pitchback Werewolf, and I had 2 bottomlesses and a trap and a torrential tribute. And I was thinking, I'm like, well, I could bottomless it, but it's only a 16. In my brain, I wasn't thinking of Horn. I wasn't thinking that it was one of the only things I would want to hit outside of Rush Rhino and Flamevel Fire Dog. So I was waiting for a Torrential Tribute to hit, but he never summoned another monster, and he stuck a Horn on it when I tried to kill it with Worm X, and then he just beat me with it until I died. So I was kind of mad at that one. Round 2, I faced a kind of like Crystal Beast Synchro deck. It was okay, but like game 1, he couldn't get more than 1 beast in his Spell and Trap zone, and tried to push for the Stardust Dragon that ran right into a Worm Yagen. And then game 2, he managed to push a little more, and we kind of exchanged pushes until I kind of established a big field, and I had a Nebula down, so I basically had any response to his thing, and he died. Round 3, so I'm 1-1 at this point. Round 3, I face against Lightsworn, and I go 2-1 against that one. Game 1, he gets out an early Judgment Dragon, and I have like barely any traps that help, and he just goes Judgment Dragon and Lumina, go 4,000 and then 4,000 the next turn, and I'm dead. And game 2, I honestly thought I was going to start to lose this one because I drew a heavy trap hand and no monsters besides Worm King. But eventually keep stalling him and keep his field at bay until I draw a Karros, and he attacks it, and I flip it, and I get an X, and then I regain control of the duel and win. Game 3, he kind of draws badly. He doesn't really get to mill with Lightsworns very often. Like, he ends up sending, 2 Judgment Dragons to the grave and has a 3rd one in his hand, but he never gets 4 Judgment Dragons. And I get a Utopia, a Worm King, and a Thunder King, and I win with the game with that. So I'm 2-1 at this point. Round 4, I face against regular TG Stun, and I go 1-2 against him. And the game starts. Game 1 starts off hard, and I have trouble, but I eventually kind of climb my way over his traps, and I manage to W Nebula my way and get enough advantage that I make him run out of resources. Game 2 and 3 go really badly for me. Skill drains. Like game 2, he goes Skill Drain, and that negates, and that stops me from ever advantaging him, and I don't draw very well to deal with it. And then game 3, he's Light Imprisoning, which is kind of the same. That 3rd duel goes a little better. I get him down to 48, but other than that, I don't do much. So I'm 2-2 at this point. Round 5, I go against X-Saber, and he swarms and owns me games 1. He gets out Hunlei, and I try to road it, but then he warnings my road, and that stops it. That stops me cold. And game 2, I actually don't even lose any life points. I set my hand, and he double blinds MSTs into both a W Nebula Meteor and a Trap Dust Shoot, both of which I chain, and I quickly take advantage. And the only monsters he had were those the X-Saber that can only be a specimen when you have 2, and then the level 3 tuner that negates an attack, and then he had a Dark Soul, which I sent back. So he couldn't make any sort of offensive up. Game 3 goes for quite a while, and he initially takes the advantage and starts pushing, but I eventually stop him, and then he runs out of resources as I manage to push. And he tries to make Hunlei again this game, but I stop it this time, and then I'm able to win. So I'm 3-2 at this point. Round 6 versus Zombie Plants. I go 2-0 against him. Game 1 went really fast. It only lasted a few turns. I go X-Yagen first turn, and he summons Thunder King, and I bounce it with Nebula. And then I managed to draw advantage, and he summons Thunder King again, and eventually summons a Tengu. I didn't even know what he was playing at this point. But he loses in a few turns. And my life points don't even get touched. Game 2 is where I opened the 2 shards and the 2 roads, where I get massive advantage off of them. And the game goes for a while. Like, none of our life points even got touched for like 7 or 8 turns, like each. But eventually he runs out of resources as I out-advantage him, which is one of the things that worms do best. Round 7, I face Lancer Frogs, and the game eventually goes into time, but it doesn't end with time. I managed to win the game before. But they go really long. Like, he tries to stall with Ronins, but he can't, like, because I can't get over it, because my biggest one's like an 18, so, I eventually, like, we both gather resources and draw, like, a lot, but I eventually managed to use a WW to get a Yagen to flip Ronin back to his hand and attack with a bunch of stuff. And game 2 is about the same. I never really let him keep Lancer out for very long. I know the deck well. I run it myself. So I am at, what was I at? That would be 5-2 at this point. And round 8, I go against Dino Rabbit, and this game also goes into time, and he ends up winning this. I end up winning the first one, and he wins the second one. And like the whole games, we were exchanging plays back and forth. He really didn't get out. I really didn't let him get out the Evilsaur monsters very often. But this is where I drew Worm King twice. This is the first one in both games, and otherwise I had trouble drawing monsters, and whatever I could get out did not last very long. Game 1, I managed to eventually control him until until I'm at 2100, where I finally draw an X-Yagen, and then start like regaining control of the duel, and I win. And then game 2, I draw a counter for like each of his play, but I draw no monsters except for a Worm King. And then when I finally draw an X, he uses Gores, and I have no response, and I can't get rid of it. And then he wins that one, so we tie. So I'm at 5-1 this point. I go to table 21. If I win this one, because of the large number of people at the regional, I would get my nationals invite. Because there was 300 plus people, so top 48 got invites. But I go against Tengu Tour Guide Plants, and I lose 0-2 against that one, ending up going 5-3 and 1 draw. I kept him going at for both games for quite a while. Like but I drew Worm King twice again. Whatever monsters I have would get destroyed the turn after. And like I could not get him to run out of resources, and I could just not mount any sort of offensive. Like like game 2, I only did 100 damage to him. Like game 1, I got him down to 53, but I could just not push. I could just not push much. But that's it. I ended up, so out of the 9 rounds, I ended up going 5-3 1 draw, getting 69th out of 300 plus people. I'm okay with the deck, how the deck ran, but one of the things I would change is Cause like I was mentioning the side deck, I was gonna change that up, deal with TG stun, remove Fossil Diner to the side for some other stuff. Maybe add some stall and some way to deal with big monsters, because that was a problem all day. But other than that, I did okay. I'm fairly satisfied with how the day went. But that's my current worm deck. I'll probably keep the updated version of the deck in the comments if you want to see what it looks like at the moment. So if you want to see that, take a look at it. Alright, this is KS Super A7 out.